things that you have to put first.
I think that access to affordable housing is the most fundamental justice issue. It really affects everything else.
It all ties in together, because if you don't have no house to go to or something, how you gonna maintain a job? How you gonna continue to go to school and all that? You ain't got no house to go look forward to going to when you get out. I wouldn't want to do nothing if I ain't got no house. That's one thing I'll be working on, is getting a house.
People are coming out of our schools and they're not armed to get a good job, then they're never going to really be able to pay rent to stay in the community. Everything is kind of related together, and so I think it's really just a holistic thing instead of one thing.
Everybody wants, jumping on, how we have to fight terrorism and go over there and create freedom and opportunities. What about freedom and opportunities in our own country, in our own communities? Why are we spending all of that money going over to fight a war that we shouldn't have even really been fighting in the first place, and that's money that's not going and staying in the communities? So I think that's the biggest social justice issue. And it's in the whole country, but you feel it more in communities like Logan Square, where, there are a lot of needs that we need to have met in terms of education, open space, housing, etc.
Everybody has a right to housing.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to pay 1/2 of your income to be able to have a roof over your head. And this is worse than the Western world. No other country in Europe or anywhere else has housing situation like this. It's ridiculous.
Last Congress bill that they just approved was like $70 billion. That was the last one for Iraq. And that was just the last one. And they can't find $2 billion to put in housing? That doesn't make sense to me.
In general, just the displacement of families who have worked so hard to build this neighborhood, to make it safe, to make the schools good, to make the neighborhood as appealing as it is. The fact that they can't stay here and enjoy that's an injustice. That is the problem with gentrification.
I've been living in my same home, same community for 16 years. For all you newcomers, all you guys are doing is pushing out people from their homes and trying to make our community look better. But you know what? It's gonna stop pretty soon. If you guys think that you're gonna come in our community and try to take over, you better try harder, because you ain't gonna let our community go just like that. This is where we grew up. There is no way you can stop the gangs, because that's their hood, their neighborhood. Just a bit of advice, keep trying and try harder.
The old Frederick Cooper lamp factory at the corner of University and Rockwall, a developer wanted to turn that into 150 condos when the factory closed. And the community said, no way, we need this building as a place for jobs and economic development. And they turned out for meetings, they petitioned the aldermen, they wrote letters, and they were really persistent, and they were able to convince the aldermen to prevent the condo, not to change the zoning to allow condos. And now that factory building is going to be a center for environmental businesses called the Green Exchange. So it's estimated that that building is going to house 300 jobs.
I think actually seeing visuals and actually hearing people's stories is one of the most powerful ways that you can really share what's going on in the community.
The Low Income Housing Trust Fund in Chicago that can help renters pay rent.
Stay in school and try to become a yuppie. So you ain't got to worry about this issue. That's what I would do. I'm going to become a yuppie.
More places that are affordable for people to buy, who want to buy their house.
We also need to be really creative about nonprofit development corporations that build a certain type of affordable housing. We need to attract them to our community.
I just want to see more parents get involved in it, because you don't see the people the people who actually going through this stuff, you don't see them coming out and speaking.
I kind of feel like gentrification is one of those issues that's really big. It's kind of like violence, How do you stop violence? Or how do you stop poverty? Those are problems that are really big and really hard to solve, and they might not be solved in my lifetime or your lifetime because they're big. But I think that we all have a role to play.
In the midst of this crisis, how could we shape a strategy to deal with this crisis in our community? And are there things that we could actually take advantage of?
Even though, you guys aren't old enough to vote yet, but you can still really make a huge impact in terms of, talking to people. People who can vote, talking to your family, your friends, going door to door, getting, registering people to vote, getting them to sign up.
2 years ago, actually, the Social Justice Academy worked with the Logan Square Neighborhood Association on a balanced housing ordinance, and that balanced housing ordinance made it so that for every new condo development, at least 20% of it had to be affordable housing. So the students went around, we knocked on people's doors, and we got people to come out and vote for this ordinance so that people, even if their apartments turned into condos, they would still be able to afford to stay there.
For balanced development, to get the mayor to pass this ordinance that he passed, it took 8 years. And so there are moments where it's like, God, this is never going to end, this is never going to work. But as long as we stuck to it, it did work. It's not perfect, it's not ideal, it's not what we really, really wanted, but it's something.
If everybody takes a stand and just, lets the politicians and the business people know that the way that this is going right now is not acceptable, that we need something better, I think that's the first step.
We have to figure out how we impact communities, and people like me who are middle class and who are white. How does my presence in a community affect it? And then what can I do to try and stop my whiteness and my privilege and the money that I have from having a negative impact on others? Well, part of what I'm doing now is I'm fighting to make affordable housing in the community and to keep affordable housing in the community, because I don't want people to be displaced because I choose to stay.
Were there areas where the use of the land is for business, like industrial companies or warehouses or stores? One really smart thing is just to keep the land for those kind of uses, to not change the zoning to allow housing, because those uses provide jobs and the housing that comes in is unaffordable.
I definitely think speculative buyers, developers, are part of the problem.
Have all real estate developers go away and give our community a break for about 15 years so that the community has some time to build stronger relationships and stronger community development coming from within.
I understand it's hard to regulate because our form of government allows it, and it's basically capitalism. So, but if you can slow it down and make sure that we don't all end up with the Starbucks on the corner, it would be nice.
I would like to see the president come here. I'm gonna throw tomatoes at him if he come here.
Property tax relief for some neighborhoods, either lowering the property taxes or giving certain neighborhoods some kind of a break on property taxes.
The issue is that for the first time in history, the state of Illinois has the opportunity to include affordable housing in the capital budget, in addition to roads and bridges.
At a level of $100 million per year of that budget.
We have to make sure that when it gets down to the final negotiating table, where the key players like the governor, Speaker Mike Madigan, and Emil Jones are in a room by themselves, that this issue is something they have to do. Not just something that they might like to do, but it's politically required that they include housing in the capital budget.
Right now, we have the governor's support, we have the House and the Senate